Yes, I'm trying to. I definitely have a lot of energy focused that direction for sure. Yeah.
So when you don't have your suitcase
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, welcome everybody at home, whether you're with us in the live stream, that's awesome, or if you're visiting us via YouTube on the Soul Forum YouTube channel, we're glad that you're here. Today we're going to reflect a little bit on what's coming up this week, which is Spring Equinox, which happens on Tuesday, I think. And so I want to talk a little bit about Spring Equinox and the kind of sense of the way seasons provide us this sort of harmony in our lives, and then use some poetry, have some reflections on the poetry with you all, and then, and then spend some time thinking about how do you incorporate sort of harmony in your own life, and so that's what we'll do today. Let's see, before I get started, I wanted to get you just oriented to the paperwork I handed out, and I sent this out to everybody in the Soul Forum list, but I also printed up the schedule on the back, so if you're like, oh, I'm going to just keep this with me just to know what's going on, we're pretty wedded to this schedule on the back for the next couple of sessions. I'm super excited about next Sunday, which is the Wine and Tapas speaker series. Lauren Van Ham is coming to talk to us about kind of earth-centric spirituality, and I think she brings an approach to it that's not typically what we think about when we think about earth-based spirituality. So it's got a different energy to it. So hopefully you can come to that. And then we're going to use her content for our last few sessions together. So then we'll talk about eco-spirituality and what that means to you, how you play around with it. So that's what's coming up in the future. And then we'll finish up on the 28th with a potluck down in the main hall. So we'll just have a big little celebration to kind of close things down, since I'll talk about that once we're off the line today, what happened there. Huh?
That's the perfect wrap-up for you, eco-spirituality.
It is. Yeah, it's one of my, I don't try to push my vision of the world on people, but that's in my wheelhouse.
You're allowed to.
Yeah, I really do think there's something there, to be honest with you. Yeah, and I think it resonates with a lot of people, of course.
Someone wise just said to me, if not now, when?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, this is probably it. So now would be the time. So one of the things I wanted to just chat about before we jump into the poem that I kind of used, I riffed off of Amanda Gorman's piece, We Are Arborescent, which means you're tree-like. And so I brought with me one of the pieces of art from Winter Solstice. So when people gathered for the last Earth event, it was when winter was coming into being, right? Winter solstice. And people wrote poetry and created art in the cave art wall. And I just love this tree that was a part of that. I've kept it, and it's a perfect way to kind of orient now as we shift from the stillness of winter time to this, the palpable power of spring. Spring just has this energy that we all just adore and reminds us that life is relentlessly marvelous. It just will not relent. And how, it just strikes me how life managed to collaborate with the way the planet moves through the seasons, because we're a wobbly planet, and we got this whole 4-season thing, and life has to adjust. And so it creates this sort of harmonic balance to survive, and everything goes quiet in the winter, and then it bursts out in spring, and the whole 9 yards. It's just a marvelous gift that we live inside of, and life adapts to that gift, right? Life tends to do that. And so for my money, which is why I think it's so nice to end with Lauren, is that my guess is there's some spirituality birthed inside of that in the natural patterns, right? That we tend to like to put our abstract layers on top of, but just the essence of it itself has got some real lessons to teach us, I think, about life. And one of those happens in Spring Equinox, where, every season is introduced when the earth finds its harmony point again. It's the weirdest thing, right? It gets to an extreme, to a point where it doesn't collapse and it just turns the corner and it heads back to harmony again. And I think it was who was it when we were going around the circle a couple weeks ago? Yeah, we were looking for those, those, what are the milestones that you have in your life? And somebody in the group talked about wanting to kind of get back to a more balanced life where they were adding more of their childlike spirit back into their daily routines. And you could hear in her voice this longing to get back to kind of a harmony point. And then do harmony points actually birth a new season? And I just wonder about that sometimes when we get out of balance, maybe finding that balance point is when the new season can emerge, just like the seasons, right? So a couple things today. One is to, and why it's taken me so long to figure out this whole thing, it drives me nuts. But we'll start off with the Amanda Gorman poem and then just leave a little space for you to think about it. Hear some of your reflections on the poem. And then I'm going to tell you a story from Taoism. And that Taoist story is a nice reminder of what our theme is. And then we'll just kind of open it up to conversation. Does that sound like a plan? All right. Remember, we're all a little tree-like. And I'll ring the bell. Allow yourself to get a little bit centered, and then we'll be guided by this Amanda Gorman piece. You just listen along if you like, and then use it to look at after you hear these words. We are arborescent. What goes unseen is at the very root of ourselves. There is much that can distort our deepest sense of who we are, leaves us warped and wasted. But we will not walk from what we've borne throughout the seasons of our lives. Its trace forever etched deep within. We are arborescent. We scope the heavens' nourishment within the arc of the sun, not with our eyes, but the blur of our bodies. The celestial, stitched inside of us, we forever slant upward. For there are ways to sit and let each season wash around us like a low sound within this grove we share. We grasp at the very best of each other and begin again. We are arborescent. All right. One of the reasons I just love this piece of poetry, or at least the construction of it, is this idea of how I grew up in the redwoods, so for me, redwoods seem to be the tree of choice when I think about what it means to be arborescent, and how they develop in a grove, right? They're not singular trees. There's a mother tree, and then there's that grove of trees that are birthed out from the mother, And then I think about this group as a grove of redwood trees, right? So how does the grove come together to share each of their lives so that the whole can, continue to find their way to the sun, to be nourished. And I just love that imagery about the way in which this group gathers. And this poetry, for some reason, for me, reminded me so much of what happens in this little soul form conversation, in that oftentimes I don't even see the wisdom that I gain from from this group of trees. I don't even see it coming. It just comes out from the soil as you share your insights and thoughts, and then I get to inherit that for a bit, and it becomes the nourishment that I feed off of for the week. And that pattern is just like almost magical to me, right? It's not a pattern that I create. I am gifted because I sit in the grove. And there's just something beautiful about it, right? That I love, and I think grounds us in sort of the wisdom in which nature works itself, right? I'm sure the actual grove of redwood trees are actually having the same experience that we have in here, right? They nourish each other, they're underneath the surface, their roots intertwine and hold each other in strong winds, they pass nourishment along, they there's all sorts of stuff that goes on that is gift to them. And I just felt like this poem, which she split up into two different parts, but this poem really captures that for me anyway. So that was one of the insights I had about her writing for today. But I'm curious what stuck out for you, as you heard it, or a couple of lines or a phrase that sort of jumped out for you. Let's share some of that this morning too. And we have a microphone, so you're busy on your phone, young woman. So.
You can note.
Oh, I'll take it.
I don't want to lose it.
Yeah. Anybody have just some initial reflections on the poetry?
Well, I do. That's what I'm
See?
writing down. Well, no, so I had to write it down so I don't forget. But
oh, that's
I
what
could
you were
say
doing.
it. Yeah. So I have this whole metaphor that I use around so mine's the oak tree.
Yeah.
And the acorn.
Oak. Yeah.
And that the acorn can be many possibilities. And so then I view the acorn. So then anyway, so, it's like it falls into the soil, and then it, can life follow, or it can become nourishment for the soil, or it can be food for the little creatures in the forest, or it can also become a mighty oak.
Yeah.
And so I view the possibilities in our stories, our personal stories, as having the same as the acorn.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Amen to that. Yeah. Well, and I mean, to build on that, one of the things that I think we're going to go into in the next few weeks, and I'm going to use this book called Reclaiming Wild Soul to guide us, is that you using that metaphor as a spiritual principle, right, is a reminder of our dependency not on the natural world just to survive, but to actually be. And I think that's a piece somehow we disconnected from over time, to where we don't look, when I'm looking for wisdom, I would go to some human constructed tradition to try to explore it, right? Like philosophy or the sciences or the arts. But I think we also, I don't have to ignore those, but there was something about just sitting with the oak tree and letting the life of that oak inform your sense of what matters in the world is just a way, I think, to honor our place in the biosphere, not simply as a physiological experience that we're having, but also a spiritual experience that we're having that opens it up to being more of a partner with us. And I think that's what Lauren will get at in next week, is that how do you do that in a way that hears the voice of nature as a partner in your spiritual construct? I can see Jen's got her hand up. Jen?
Yes, and also, I was just having a conversation at work. It's becoming wildfire season, right?
Yes, right.
And historically, we have tried so hard as humans to control fire, right? And tried to contain it and control it, and have been woefully unsuccessful. We've only prolonged the problem.
Yeah.
And so now having the conversations and educating people about, the duff under the ground and the thickness of the fuel load under the ground, because we've done that,
Yeah.
and how that's perpetuated this problem and exacerbated it, right? And so, in kind of thinking about that in this regard,
Yeah.
when I try and control like the seasons and the, kind of order of things, it only prolongs it and exacerbates it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel like I'm getting better at just sitting in kind of the soil and the darkness of the wintertime and allowing spring to come out, when it comes, and kind of clearing out the muck and the duff, to feel the sunshine. So that's
How does that, so that's another beautiful, this is what I mean about why I love this group, but so how, that sounds like it's a little bit of a shift for you, that you're softening a little bit more into,
I think always,
Yeah.
I think it's a constant softening, right? Because life kind of hits you in the gut in a different way all the time.
Yeah.
You have to just,
yeah,
that you find different depths there.
Yeah.
Or just differently, not worse or,
Yeah, yeah.
better or whatever,
Right.
but just differently. And you go, oh, there's another place.
yeah. Well, I love too that the introduce, like fire, the way in which, nature tends to manage itself through catching on fire and cleaning up the forest and starting over. And we're always wanting to kind of be the ones who are controlling that whole cycle
Yeah.
in so many different ways. What are we doing? And,
Right.
and do we really think we're going to improve on that? I don't know.
Yeah, and what looks like tragedy is often a clearing
Yeah, right.
in a lot of ways.
Beautiful.
I got one more.
All right, quick, because then Allison's got her hand up.
Oh, okay, yeah. So then that was the other thing that I really got from this poem is like how the tree in spring it's just an opportunity to begin again, and it just does that. Whereas we're like, begin again.
Yeah, really?
So it was the feeling was very liberating to me of like what that would be. I was like, oh, well, if I just allowed like to begin again, I'm like, oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. Another ring. Yeah. Allison?
And our going to the woods, especially the redwoods, but it can be the oak forest or anything, to be renewed. And that's obviously historical because just about every redwood park has its cathedral grove,
Yes.
etc. So way back, people have felt this religious feeling, whether it's in Yosemite or in a grove of redwoods, anywhere, that there is this awe-inspiring connection with something greater.
Yeah.
And that's sort of through even different cultures and through time.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think it is. We're drawn to it in some way too. It's like it pulls on us somehow.
And has effect, generally,
Yeah.
speaking for myself, I have a very calming, restoring kind of effect.
Yeah. I love that. John with the hip gloves. Geez, you're like a teenager. You're setting fashion trends as we sit here.
Yeah, or I'm short on circulation.
One or the other.
Both?
Yeah, take them both. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all speaking to the same thing. We've lost the idea that we're simply another manifestation of everything else that surrounds us.
Yeah.
That we aren't special. That's a human construct. And so the last sentence, and we grasp at the very best of each other and begin again. I need you, each of you, and all the strangers that I've yet become friends. It supports the universal principle of interconnection. That's there, whether we're willing to recognize it or not. We do. It's the plan. We work very hard at dismissing it, ignoring it, abusing it, whatever. But it's there, and so we grasp at each other. So I need you to become more of to discover the authentic me. I can't do it without you. That's the plan.
Yeah.
And it's the acorn. It's a great metaphor.
That is.
We, like the acorn, become all kinds of possibilities as to how we go forward. But the process is, who am I? And I need you to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Carla or Tina, you got anything you want to throw into this? Give her a microphone. Yeah.
I enjoyed the imagery and beauty that the poem suggests, and was attempting to visualize it as I was reading it. And then how we process is all different. So I've been, just in my own way of being, I've been really enjoying the winter and really watching the trees. And I just spend time hanging out. I have like an outdoor waterbed, watching the branches and, seeing how they remind me of a circulatory system or a brain when I'm looking at the branch of the tree. And now spring's coming, and there's the leaves are branching out. And I'm enjoying watching the contrast of the sky against the branches and the leaves and how the colors are. I've been taking pictures along the way. So I think I've been more in the now of the transition of the seasons and participating that way versus analyzing it.
Yeah. Well, I like that too, because I live in my head a lot, so I tend to do the analysis stuff a little bit too quickly. Just being with it, like you're doing, being present with it as it's being, it's such a beautiful, I think, way to think about it.
It seems like part of it is part of the passage of age. So I wouldn't have been here at 30.
You're right.
But at 72, particularly with all the dramas and traumas that show up, the present, the now moment becomes even more important to really be here. And then my own personal commitment to me at this time.
It's okay. Other people want to hear your wisdom.
My own personal commitment to me at this time is, despite the pain, the challenge, the miseries, the fears, the dramas and traumas in my external and internal world, in between that, there's a whole lot of pleasure and joy of life still to savor and not waste a second of it. And even though something else hurts, something else is still really delightful, whether it's to my eyes, my ears, or my taste.
No, thank you, Carla. That's beautiful. Because we're all going to be 73, right? So we're all. Tina?
Not all, some of us did that already.
Oh, some of us. Yeah, that's true. Tina, any thoughts on it at this point?
Nothing.
Okay, that's fair. So let me do one more thing, and then we'll kind of just break up from the online experience. And for those of you online, if you've got some reflections on the poem, just share it with one another in the chat, or share it with us via email. But one of the things that we're talking about in the worship service after this is over is there's this sense in the biblical tradition that when there's a requirement to hold a social system in disharmony, when it's not harmonized. So the other night I saw, Bernie Sanders was on being interviewed by one of the comedians that is now our news source. I can't remember who it was. And they were ribbing him about how Jeff Bezos, or however you pronounce this, is now one of the wealthiest people in the world, right? So he's out, him and Elon Musk are going back and forth. And he wondered if he wanted to, do a shout out, compliment him on that. And of course, Bernie Sanders, quite the contrary, said, no, the problem in this country, from his perspective, right, is this imbalance of both wealth and income inequality. And it's just so grotesque that a small portion of humanity in our country has power and resources, and the rest of them do not, right? So there's this imbalance. And there's something about the biblical tradition that says whenever you're maintaining something out of harmony, out of balance, someone's going to suffer. Someone's suffering in that equation. That's the only way it is sustained. You think about slavery, right? And the ability to have free labor to drive all this productivity. We're all, productivity is, but when you pull something out of harmony or balance, out of the equinox, then there will be suffering. And who's suffering? And so the point of the biblical narrative anyway is that in order to understand what's out of balance, you don't pay attention to the people who are privileged in that situation. You listen to the cries, right? You listen to the broken lives. And that's sort of one of the dominant narratives in the system. That helps you see what's broken, what's out of balance. And so you can move something out of dis-ease back into harmony again. And then start over. It's like a seasonal thing. If you don't do that, you're just destined for peril. And so in the Jewish tradition, they would have these Jubilee years that would try to reset the balance point, right? So they got something from nature, that nature resets itself with a harmonic moment and then starts over again. And if things get too out of whack, then you better learn how to reset things, or you're going to destroy the whole system. It won't work. And I do think it's a beautiful lesson for our time. How do we do that? And so the last thing I want to share, and then we'll let you go, is this great little story out of the Taoist tradition, which I love Taoist poetry. It's so, I don't know if you read a lot of Taoist poetry, but it's like the most simple poetry in the world, like leaf, falls, water, runs, breathe, that's it. You're like, what? What are they doing there? So I love Taoist poetry. So there's a story of a village that's been in this major drought forever, right? There's been no rain, everything's dying, the cattle are dying, their whole society's falling apart because they're not getting any rain. So they call out a rainmaker who happens to be a Taoist priest, and they say, please come to our community and bring rain to our community. So he comes to the community and he sees what's going on. And they say, what can you do for us? And he goes, just show me a hut that I can sit in by myself. And they okay, they put him in this hut, and he sits in the hut for 3 days. 2 days, nothing happens for 2 days. Third day, starts raining, right? The earth starts seeking balance again in this community. He comes out of the hut, and they're like, well, what did you do? And he goes, I didn't do anything, right? But when I'm with you, you're so out of harmony that nothing's going to harmonize. So I just went to find my own inner harmony. And when I find my inner harmony, then something new can happen. And obviously it's a metaphor, but I think there's some truth to that. And I thought, struck it beautifully, Carla, in that when there's craziness all around you, seeking your own inner harmony is probably the only place you can find some open frontier, right? That's where it's going to happen. There's still going to be drought, there's still going to be dis-ease, there's still going to be everything in your life out of balance, but you can take responsibility to find those harmonic places in your life again, and then begin again from there. Let them be like your equinox, and say, this is going to be my equinox. That's what retirement is a little bit for me, right? We were just talking about that, right? Can I rediscover a better balance point in my life, and then see let's see what happens. I don't know. I can't predict whether the acorn's going to be feed for the squirrel, or start a new tree, or just rot. But That's what you want to find, I think.
Even if you try to control what happens.
Yes, that's right. Then you're not really finding your balance point, I think. So it's a beautiful little, it was one of Carl Jung's favorite metaphors, was this Taoist priest metaphor that, so find your way into whatever space you need to enter into your own personal balancing act. That generates the possibility of renewal or life or surprise or whatever. So, all right, so with that, we're going to let you go at home. We're going to have a conversation about that. Hopefully we'll see all of you next Sunday, 4:30, is it? Yeah, 4:30 to 6. Very good. I love how we're all in the pattern here. I'm really excited for Lauren. I already gave her all the questions I'm going to ask her. I'm going to push her really hard, and then you all open Q&A with her, and she's just a delightful spirit if you haven't met her yet. She's great. Okay, see you next week.
What does tapas mean?